Welcome to another episode of RELICS Radio. This is a family-friendly show, so the entire family can join us as we talk metal detecting, relic, and treasure hunting. You can also call into the show at 270-495-0315 or join in the chat and post any questions or comments you might have. RELICS Radio is also syndicated on the Cutting Edge Radio Network and is broadcast around the world. You're listening to RELICS Radio of Southern Kentucky. And you are listening to another episode of RELICS Radio. I want to welcome all of our live listeners that have tuned in on the Spreaker.com app. Also want to welcome all of our syndicated listeners that are tuning in through the Cutting Edge Radio Network. And we know that not everybody can listen live, so a lot of you will be catching these archives on podcast, either Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. Now we are there. So want to welcome everybody, and it's good to be back home and be back on the air here. I want to thank Jeff Lubert and Ken King last week for filling in for me while I was down at the Gulf enjoying myself. And speaking of Ken King, I've got him on here tonight as special co-host. What's going on, Ken?
Loy, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Thanks for inviting me back. I guess I didn't mess up too bad.
Well, I tell you what, this is hard to do by yourself. I know that Josh Kimmel does it, and my hat's off to Josh. His show is structured a little bit different than this show is. Not that it makes it any harder, but it seems like, well, I'm 151 years old. I mean, it's almost impossible for me to keep everything going, and I've got so many screens and everything to look at, and it does help for somebody to be able to look into the chat and be able to talk back and forth, and if something happens, you know that I've got somebody that I can fall back on if I get a brain freeze, which I do that more often now than in any other time. But I know Monday night we had a special program on Relic Roundup about the coronavirus and the effect that it's having on all of the hunts and the events and just in our whole life. And you called in that night and informed us that your wife is having some symptoms and that she has taken the test. What's the update on that?
Yeah, thanks, Loy. Well, we're still waiting for the results. They need 72 hours. At least that's what they told us initially, was 72 hours for the results to come back from the test. We were lucky enough to locate a drive-up outdoor testing lab so that she could go down and take the test. Last thing we wanted for her was to go to a waiting room full of other sick people, all in the same room. And because if she didn't have the COVID-19, we didn't want to expose her to any undue risk. So we found this outdoor testing lab and were able to go down there. And it was a real quick procedure. It took only about 10, 15 seconds once the lady in the hazmat suit came up and put the swab up her nose and stuff. It didn't take very long at all, and we were out of there. But 72 hours for them to do the test, and hopefully by tomorrow we'll know.
Yeah, that's disconcerting, though, and upsetting to have somebody come out with a hazmat suit to the car, isn't it?
It sure
has
is.
to be.
Yeah, it was like, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore, definitely.
Well, my wife, as you know, whenever I was gone, I went first to down to Gulf Shores, and then went over into Florida and picked my wife up on Monday. She came back from a week at the Bahamas on a cruise ship. Tried to talk her out of it before she went because we were getting word that this virus was around. But went and got her, and then we went over to Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, and Fort Morgan over there. And but nobody's sick. Nobody's having any illness or anything. So I guess we're in pretty good shape. It's been 10 days now, so surely one of us would have developed something. But we had quite a bit of our family down there, so. Well, in fact, we had our whole family was either at the cruise or at Gulf Shores, and so we made it all the way back. And I guess she was on the last cruise because there was one that went out from Mobile the next morning after she got back and got out a little ways in the Gulf, and they turned it around and brought it back. So now then, I understand that they are. I know that the Cardinal Cruise Lines has offered to station some of those cruise ships, I think up around maybe New York and San Francisco, some of the harder hit areas, just for overflow, not necessarily for virus patients, but for overflow patients from hospitals and stuff like that. So, they're using them in a good way. Now, not that it wasn't a good way to go on a cruise, but under the circumstances, nobody would want to go on a cruise. And under the circumstances right now, nobody would want to go to an organized hunt with a lot of people, would you?
Right. No, I think a lot of people are taking heed and doing what they need to do to try to, curb this as much as possible. My hats are off to everybody out there that is compromising their day-to-day lives, things you're not used to doing, all in the effort of trying to, curb this back a bit. I take my hat off to you because I think it's important that we take this seriously and all of us do what we can to, try to not spread it.
Yeah, and I talked to you earlier this afternoon. Our church is actually, I'm working on the live stream stuff for it this Sunday. We did meet this past Sunday morning. We canceled Sunday night. We canceled Wednesday night. And then we decided this week, as the CDC came out and suggested groups of 10 or less, and we run anywhere from 60 to 75 people normally there. So we just decided to err on the side of caution and just go ahead and live stream, and hopefully that won't last long. Hopefully all of this, and we've never said this word, social distancing, will help us, and we'll get over this fairly quick, and everybody kind of get back to their normal walk of life.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult. I know it's going to be a challenge for you for sure. Actually, as I was looking around the internet earlier today, I came across one of your teachings, one of your sermons, let's say, and I was watching it, and I was trying to imagine you doing that, over the internet or on some kind of Skype or some kind of program like that. It'd be very difficult. It's
all going to be audio, and I'm not going to do any video. I'm going to just do my PowerPoint. But yeah, it's because you read off of the audience. You look at the body language. You see how effective or ineffective that you're being, and you may have to change, certain things or your delivery or what have you. It's just going to be completely different, but I think that everybody will, realize that and go along with it. But we've got a ray of sunlight tonight in all of this cloud of virus and everything. We've got some good stories, or we've got a guy on here tonight that's going to tell us some really good stories. So, Ken, why don't you go ahead and bring him on?
Yeah, I'm telling you, Lloyd, you've hooked up a great guest for us tonight. Chris Turner is with the RingFinders. He's out of Vancouver, British Columbia. Boy, he's got a wealth of stories and experience out there in the Diggin world. I want to welcome him to the show. Chris, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Ken. Thank you. Hi, Lloyd. How you doing?
I'm doing great. To be an old man now, as I said. We talked a little bit prior to the show, but just real quick, how is the virus in your neck of the woods?
Everybody's shutting down. Everybody's locking down, getting ready for this. And as you were mentioning, just self-containing. And, we all see the importance of that. It's definitely a challenging time for everyone around the world. I mean, it's going to be a historical year for sure. A friend of mine, Loy, said it's like the world is pressing the restart button, and now we just sit back and hopefully it reboots in a positive way. And that's what I'm going to do, is just send a lot of positive thoughts to everybody and pray it gets better here soon.
Yeah, we do too, because it is a situation, that obviously has proved deadly, and we're testing more now, and we're seeing a lot more cases that are popping up. Not that they're popping up, we just know that they're there now, where we probably didn't prior to that. And before I turn it back over to Ken, I just want to thank everyone, especially Dr. Rodney Cox Monday night, for coming on. I know that Barb came on the show. She called in. There were a number of people that called in. There were a number of people that were in the chat, and everybody really supportive of that show and everything. And everybody, we're all in the same boat, and it was just a good night to just kind of air, I guess, our concerns and try to learn a little bit more about this. But our thoughts and prayers are with everybody, and we'll get through this. We'll get back to normal life one of these days. So I've talked enough. Ken, go ahead.
Hey, Lloyd, it was a great show. It was definitely a great show. Everyone, I'm sure, appreciated it. But hey, Chris, let's start things off. Let's go back. Let's talk about the RingFinders. Let's start at the beginning of the RingFinders. How did you come up with that idea, and how did you decide that this is something you were going to do and put together?
The idea actually came along probably in 1972 without me realizing it. When I got my first metal detector and I was playing with it in the backyard, my dad had set a bunch of coins around for me to find. And my neighbor, this little old lady who lived there beside me, she was in the garden. She said, "Christopher, what are you doing?" I said, I'm metal detecting. She goes, "What is that thing?" I go, "It's a metal detector." She goes, "What does it do?" I goes, "It finds treasure." And I can see her thinking for a while, and about a few minutes go by, and she goes, "Could it find a ring?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I lost a ring 10 years ago in my garden." So I jumped over onto her property. I started searching. And with probably 10, 15 minutes, I found her diamond engagement ring. And I didn't even realize it. I just thought to myself, I was like, 12 years old. I thought, hey, this is cool. Here you go. And the look on her face, like she couldn't speak. She just sat there, held the ring, and her jaw was open. And for the next year, every Friday, there was an apple pie on my door.
Oh, my goodness.
Doorstep. Every Friday, she made me a homemade apple pie. I didn't realize, flashback many years after my professional soccer career, I picked up the metal detector again, probably back in 1984, 86. And I was in L.A. living on a boat, and I would get up every morning early, and one day somebody attacked me, and they were coming down the beach yelling. I'm like, "Oh, boy, what's this?" And as he got closer, he goes, "Can you help? Can you help?" And that's like, "What's up?" And he's like, "My wife and I were up here. We're having a picnic last night. We lost her engagement ring, and we've been here all night looking with flashlights." So I went up there, found it in a few minutes, and she was crying. He was tearing up. He gave me everything he had in his wallet. And I said, whoa. I go, "I don't want any money for this." He goes, "You're taking it. You don't know what this means to us." And they walked away arm in arm. And I just thought, wow. I, again, still didn't realize this was coming. Then I moved to Cancun. I lived there for a year, and the same thing continuously started to happen. And I saw a pattern that, hey, I can find a good use with my metal detector to help people. So I came back to Vancouver, I believe it was around 1987, 88, and I started a little company called Finders. And this is before computers, so it was mostly word of mouth. And I started getting calls, and then the internet came in, and I was getting more calls, finding more smiles. And then 10 years ago, an American man from Illinois contacted me and said, "I love what you're doing in Vancouver. I love the Finders. Have you thought of doing it on a higher level?" And I said, "Yeah, it's a money thing." He goes, "I'll pay for it." He says, "You design it, you create it, and I'll pay for it." And I said, "What do you want?" And he got a percentage of the company, and we started off with a lot of resistance. People didn't see what I had created and what I was trying to do. And in the metal detecting world, it kind of ruffled feathers. So
why is that?
I had a lot of, what's that?
Why is that? Why did it ruffle a lot of feathers?
Because I created a directory, and I was employing the attitude of we work on a reward basis. And for some reason, even back in my days in my club, they thought that was a horrible thing to accept rewards or money for finding something for somebody.
Oh.
So I tried to explain to them, I understand what you're saying. This is our hobby, and if we can help people, we do. But I'm doing it on an extreme level where if somebody contacts me and says they've lost a ring, I pretty much drop everything and go for it. I know time is essential. You got to be there quickly, or you can, it might be picked up by the beach machine or somebody else. I've had people call me and, I've driven 10 hours to the side of a highway to help somebody. I've gone out at 4 a.m. to look for a ring at low tide. I'll go anywhere and everywhere to help people. So once the RingFinders came to light, I tried to let people know what I was doing. And again, it was just met with resistance until people started coming on and seeing the stories, reading the testimonials, and saying, hey, this actually works. Wow. And we don't charge. We work on a reward basis. We leave it up to people to pay what they can afford. I've done it for a homemade apple pie or a homemade loaf of banana bread. I've done it for a smile. So it depends what people can afford.
Yeah. Hey, guys, we need to take a commercial break, and we'll be right back with Chris Turner of the RingFinders. I'm excited to announce that Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors has rejoined RELICS Radio as a sponsor. As a multi-line dealer, Tim carries several brands of detectors and accessories, and he's ready to serve all of your metal detecting needs. I'll give you his contact info in a minute. So why did RELICS Radio go back to Tim Henderson as our dealer sponsor? 3 very important reasons. First, I often hunt with Tim, so I know firsthand that he uses what he sells, and he prides himself with great customer service and support. Second, Tim goes the extra mile in helping the new detectorist determine exactly what they need to get started. He will not try and sell you some high-priced product if that's not what you need. And at the same time, Tim can serve the seasoned detectorist with their upgrades or new product questions. And finally, Tim won't leave you hanging after the sale. He's just a phone call away for any questions or specialized training needs. So, you can call Tim directly at 615-948-4611, or you can email him at tjhenderson@comcast.net. And I noticed that Tim is in the chat tonight. A very good friend and our dealer of choice. If you've got any needs in the metal detecting field, whether you need a new detector or you need a coil or you just need some information, just give him a call. He's a great guy. He'll talk to you. And didn't mean to cut you guys off, but go ahead, Ken, with what you were doing with Chris there.
No, Chris, I can definitely see how a lot of those early on impressions you got from those reactions from those individuals you would help, because I get it today. I get it these days. I know most detectorists out there know exactly what you're talking about. So you started this thing up and it just grew from there. But I was on the site today. It's grown into quite a large endeavor. Where are things at these days? Like it's you're in a lot of different countries. Why don't you talk about how things have grown?
Oh yeah, it's really grown and continues to grow. We have over 460 members, 22 countries,
wow.
heavy based in the United States.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And
did you ever think it would grow like that?
I was hoping, the vision that my partner had, he'd seen this about the same time as I did. What my little service was doing here in Vancouver could, potentially grow, and we were hoping for that. And the website now has over 6,279 recorded recoveries. We're probably closer to 8,000. There's at least 2,000 that haven't been recorded. When I say recorded, that means a picture and a smile. a picture of the ring and a smile. If people don't record it, we can't put it on our book. So these are actual recoveries made by members that are put on our book of smiles. We have thousands of testimonials, blogs, and pictures and stories. And the stories are incredible. I mean, every ring, everything we find for people has such an amazing, beautiful story that we help continue. And, you know, like yourself, like you were saying, if you've ever experienced this, you'll want to do nothing else. I live for the phone call to go out and help somebody, just to see the smile you can put on somebody's face.
Yeah, you know, I watch a lot of YouTube videos out there, Chris, and my eyes are always drawn to the return stories, and I don't care where it's at. I saw a return story in Germany. I couldn't speak the language, so I didn't know what they were saying, but I could get the gist of it just by watching, and it was absolutely amazing. Sure. And there's nothing better. So my hats are off to you, man. Just an awesome thing. But you also detect out there, right? You do more than just the ring finders. You're out there detecting right along with the rest of us.
Oh my God, yeah. I started off a relic hunter, and I hammered the Lower Mainland, Vancouver, all the ghost trails. I was really into, you know, prospecting and relic hunting. I absolutely love it. I've gone to England. I've found coins that are over, 2,000 years old. There's nothing like it. I kind of fell into this, to be honest with you. It wasn't anything I ever thought of doing. I just happened to realize there was a need for this. And it turned out to be a great thing, because if you go to our website, you'll see the smiles. If you go to my YouTube channel, The RingFinders on YouTube, you'll see over 300 videos of returns and the smiles, exactly what you're saying. I found a way to kind of fake people out and put that ring in front of them without them knowing, to get their true reactions. And it's pretty powerful. It's pretty amazing. And we're going to hopefully go in. I'll tell you some of my stories, some of the stuff I found. And I also want to say, I always say this, I'm extremely proud of the RingFinders directory. I'm proud of the members that have joined to do exactly what I do here, and that's help people. We've all found a use with our metal detectors to help people, and there really isn't any better job out there. I absolutely live for it. And some of the stories, I mean, every ring has a story, as you know, and those stories end, and we get to help continue them, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I've been wanting to sign up with y'all for about a year. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet. It's one of those things where I was like, I've known of your service. Some of my fellow friends around here from my metal detecting club are ring finders, and I thought, well, I'll look into it. I know that the Metro Denver area is a little heavy, and I understand that. I'm more up north. I'm up in northern Colorado, and there's one or two up there, but none in my own town. And so I was thinking about, why don't I was looking at that today, and so maybe after our interview tonight, I'm going to go head over there tomorrow and look further into that, and I think I'm going to get signed up, and maybe you'll get back to me, let me know if you think we're too heavy in this area or not, because I know you try to keep that not so heavy, right?
Well, we have a thing where 3 people, any town, any city can join, and we're not anywhere near heavy right now, but let me say, it's not just rings. The stories go way beyond rings. We have members that get called for house and property searches for gold and silver. I had a member in Florida years ago, maybe when I just basically started the directory, he joined, and his first call was for buried gold, hidden gold on this property in the Florida Everglades. Crazy story. His name was Mike Mackerel from Florida. He's one of my members, and he phoned me and says, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, here's what you do. You get a 3-day rate." I kind of helped him with how to go for it, because when we deal with lawyers or insurance companies, we deal differently because they don't understand the reward basis. The story was phenomenal. The guy had passed away, sadly, but there was a story of a lot of gold hidden on his property. So my member, Mike Mackerel, went in there, and they turned up 10,000 silver, Mercury, and Roosevelt dimes in paint cans, 750 walk-in Liberties halves, 100-ounce silver bar. But somebody beat him to the gold. And, I listened to the story very carefully. And when he told me somebody broke into the cold air duct and left behind 57 high-powered assault weapons, I knew right away whoever broke in wasn't a criminal. They knew what they were going for. they couldn't care about the weapons, right? I mean, the AK-47s, they had all kinds of. This guy was ready for Armageddon. He was in the middle of the Florida Everglades. He would never find his place. So when I heard that, I knew he was beaten. But I flew out. I flew out to Florida. I wanted to be a part of that just to make sure he didn't miss it. And we did a comb of the area. But we pretty much knew we got beaten to the punch. But it was still a very cool story.
Yeah, and, you were talking about not only rings. I remember Steve Zazulik, whenever he was on either this show or Relic Roundup, I don't remember which one, he was talking about a very, very expensive earring that he found at a country club for a lady. I couldn't believe the price that he said that earring was valued at, and why somebody would wear something like that.
Well, you had me at country club. As soon as I heard that, you got a special types of people go to the country clubs, and they like to show what they have, I'm sure. But I've found some high-valued rings. Whatever people can wear, they will wear. That's why they have it most of the times. That's what they want to show. And, some of them have ridiculously crazy, wonderful stories. I mean, ones that are tear-jerking. I had a lady, her fiance and her were checking out property, and they were holding hands and walking down this lot, and she had slipped and pulled his iron engineering ring off. Now, he got that for graduating iron engineering. He was an iron engineer. He got that for graduating. It was a piece of the bridge out here, Second Narrows Bridge, that collapsed, and it was in memory of the people that died on it and that built it. So they would do good jobs, and that's what they make the rings out for, the graduating class. She felt horrible. He couldn't find it. They had another one made. Well, long the short of it, he died shortly after. And the parents wanted that ring in memory of their son. And then she remembered, oh, my God, he'd lost one on this lot. And she found the RingFinders, contacted me and said, would you come out and help me? I'm like, absolutely. She told me the story. When I found that ring, I mean, my arms, my goosebumps, she started tearing up. I get choked up talking about it now. And that was probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But it's such a powerful thing that we can do and how we can help. And I'm just so honored to be able to help continue and hear these stories.
And Ken was saying a while ago that he watched a lot of videos and watched, our favorite is those returns and everything. And he said he was watching one that was in German. But I tell you what, the smile on the face, the exuberance of people is an international language, isn't it?
It's universal. It really is. Yeah. I was in Italy, and I was in the French. Well, I was in the French Riviera, and near Cannes. And this little Italian guy and his wife, they saw me in the water, and I'm chest deep, and he comes running out, and scusa. We couldn't speak the language, but I knew just by his gestures what he did. So I'm like this. I make a square. I go, show me where you were. Then he started understanding. We were kind of going back and forth. He put me in the area I found in about 10 minutes. And the look on his face and his wife, it was so magical. And,
wow.
And, he wants to pay me. I'm like, no. And they brought me a nice fresh squeezed orange juice from the restaurant up top. And, it's universal. It's a wonderful thing. And if you've experienced it, you'll want to experience more just to see how happy you can make somebody. And, it really is. It's the best job I've ever had.
Yeah. I tell you what, it's about a minute early, but let's run this commercial right here, and then we'll be right back. T-shirts are a perfect way to get your brand recognized, whether you're talking about a business, a club, a sports team, your YouTube channel, or whatever. But you may have asked, where can I get quality, affordable shirts on demand? Well, I'm glad you asked. RELICS RADIO uses detectorists.com for all of our T-shirts, long sleeve shirts, and hoodies. That's detectorists.com. Ken and Mark Guthrie make quality shirts that last, they ship quick, and best of all, they're affordable. So if you need customized apparel, then go to detectorists.com. And be sure and tell them that RELICS Radio sent you. And Ken and Mark Guthrie are two two fine guys, and they have a fine company called detectorists.com. Really great shirts. Been wearing the hoodie all winter long. It's not too hot. It's not too bulky or anything. It's just perfect. And getting ready to get into the T-shirts, and it's not going to be long before we'll need those cooling towels as well. So go check out detectorists.com, and they will help you out. Some more Tennessee boys. There are a lot of good folks down in Tennessee, I tell you. Chris, what is your favorite of everything that you found, whether it's the story behind it or the emotion or what?
Well, it's a great question. I would say everything I find is the greatest, be it a silver ring, a platinum ring, a Rolex watch. It doesn't matter. To see the smiles make it the greatest. So it's hard to just narrow down to one.
You bring up a good point. This is not based on monetary value. It's based on, a lot of these things may be, as far as monetary value, they may be almost worthless, but it's a family heirloom or something that gives it the treasure value. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is like it's either family, it's mostly the sentimental value. And everybody knows they can get another one, but it's not the one that was given to you by your grandfather or your great-grandmother or your husband or your wife. It means something when it's been handed to you from that person, but you can always buy another one. It's just not quite the same. I hear everybody say that.
Yeah. What is the most emotions or the best story that you can tell us out of all the finds that you found?
Well, one that I always reflect on is a young man from Australia brought his girlfriend over, and she was, she had lost her husband years ago, and she finally started dating. She went with this man to the Rocky Mountains in Alberta. And while they were driving back to the airport, he pulled over to take pictures of the mountain. She jumped out, forgot that she put 5 rings on her lap. And all 5 rings went on the side of the road in the snow. And they didn't realize it until they got to the airport. Flashback, she realizes she got no rings. She runs to the rental car, no rings in there. She was inconsolable. He couldn't talk to her the whole flight home. She was gutted. It was from her late husband's, wedding bands, engagement rings, anniversary. It was so much sentimental to these rings. He felt horrible because he invited her there. So he took it upon himself to come back 6 months later when the snow melted. And from the pictures he took of Castle Rock Mountain, he was able to basically put himself where he had pulled off to the side of the road. And with a fork for 2 days on the side of a highway in the dirt and grass, he found 2 of the 5 rings.
Wow.
A fork.
that with a fork. I know.
That's dedication.
I mean, I have a metal detector I can't find too. But you know what? He went home, gave her the rings, and the look on her face, the pure shock and joy. He realized he had to come back and find the other ones, and he phoned me. He found the RingFinders. He said, "Would you consider meeting me up there?" It was a 10-hour drive for me to go to the Rocky Mountains. I said, "Absolutely." He flew in for 1 day, and he had GPS the area, so we knew exactly where we were going. They were doing road work, both sides of the road, widen the road. He was gutted. He'd just flown so many hours, 19 hours to get here to find out they'd done road work. But the last half a mile, they'd stopped, and that's where his rings were. We found them all, and he went back to Australia and proposed to her, and they got married. And that one always sticks in my mind. The amount of work this man went to get back these rings, and the story behind him was so beautiful. And that one was, I knew we were going to find them because it was on the side of a highway. The rings did move apart from each other because of the plow and over the year of snow being pushed. It had moved some of the rings away from the original drop area, but it was just a matter of time before I found them all.
That is amazing. That's an amazing story. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I'll tell you some of my one of my toughest ones was a Rolex watch in the ocean. And the reason why it was tough was it was at low tide, but low tide, I would have to go out at like 3 a.m. because that's when the low tide was. And I had to go chest deep in low tide. And to try to do this at night, we don't have to worry about sharks here. That's a great thing. And we don't have waves like the guys in California and Florida and Hawaii. So it's a very simple search. You just get in there and you grid search up to your neck, up to your ankles, to your neck, to your ankles. Well, that's a tough thing when it's pitch black out. So I met the guy. We went out there. I took a bunch of glow sticks and I put them on the beach where about a half a foot apart, every 6 inches or so. No, it would have been about a foot apart. I put a glow stick across the beach. And what I would do, Loy, is I would start with the lineup of the first glow stick, and I would back up swinging my loop until I got up to my neck in water. Then I would take a half a step over to where I lined up with the other one. I'd go forward. I did this for 45 minutes, and I found this Rolex at like chest deep of water. I was out there, and I could see it in my scoop, and I went, wow. And he heard me. He goes, "You found it?" I said, "Yeah, I did." He just started screaming. Wow. I couldn't see him. I just heard his voice, and he heard my voice. But that was the only way I could get this guy's Rolex. And because of, you want to act fast with these, like you say, you know. But it's fortunate the low tides were at that time of morning, so I wasn't worried anybody else was going to find it. But that was one of my tougher ones. I've had another one. I've been searching for years for this one. It's in a cemetery. And check this one out, Ken. The old man throws these potted flower plants, plastic potted flower plants, over the edge. And he's been doing this ever since he's been visiting his wife at the cemetery. Well, his daughter says he knows exactly where it fell, and she wanted to hire me to go find it so she'd give it to him as a present. So I thought, no big deal. This is going to be easy. I get there. Well, it's a pretty straight down, slope. I had to tie myself up to a tree and rappel. I couldn't find it. So I threw a test ring. I couldn't find the test ring. And I saw exactly where the test ring went. I'm like, okay, this is weird. What's going on? So I'm thinking, is my machine working? What's going on? Well, what happened was, over the years, the amount of potted plastic pot holders has created a complete false bottom, as you would say, not bottom, but shelf of the slope. So for the last 100 years, people throwing this stuff over the edge, it's created like cracks and crevices where it could go down 4 or 5 feet.
Wow.
You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So
oh, man.
I go there every year. I take like 10 big garbage bags, and all I do is I pick out all the plastic pots. I throw them into these garbage bags, and I go and I toss them away. But that's what I'll spend like 2-3 days in a row, just pulling off the side of that little cliff to see if I can actually get to where these rings are. I still haven't found them.
So you would just throw it, it would just disappear, just like a slip and slide, right? It just head on down the hill.
No, but that's not what it did. You see, what it did, it you don't see the pots. You don't see them. So it's not a slip and slide. What has happened is the foliage and everything, the dirt has rolled over top of it, but it's created these cracks in between all the pots. So the weight of the gold has gone down, and it starts working through all these little cracks and crevices where the pots are to who knows how deep, because I keep pulling all these things off, trying to get to where these rings are. Because I know where mine is, and I know where his is. I still haven't got to it. I just continue to pull off all these plastic pots.
Chris, how many ring return missions do you think you've been on?
I've returned over 600 in my lifetime, and missions, thousands probably. We don't find everything. And the best way I can explain is people who lose jewelry, if they have not seen it come off their hand and they associate the loss by looking at their finger and the ring is gone, that becomes a bit of a challenge. So you got to be a very good detective. You got to ask the right questions. And my first question is, did you see the ring come off? Yes, sir, I did. Where were you? I was over here. What were you doing? I was playing volleyball. Okay, I'm going to find your ring. Boom, there it is. Some take seconds, some take minutes. Did you see the ring come off? No, I didn't. What makes you think it was here? Well, I looked at my hand, it was gone. So association by loss, seeing it's not on their finger, now they associate that area. I'll come into that area and I won't find it, and they go, is your machine good enough? And I just smile and I go, yeah, the machine's good. You just didn't lose it here. So now what I do is I keep asking questions, trying to see if there's another area where they could have been before. And I expand my grid search. A lot of times I will find these rings 60, 70 yards away. And they're like, oh my God, that's right. I was putting suntan lotion on my kids. And I took them off. Oh, so you see, it's sort of what I call a closure. If I don't find it, it's not because they didn't lose it. It's just because they didn't lose it there. A lot of times people get closure. They go back to their house. I'll get a phone call a couple of days later, like, you're never going to believe it. And I go, you found your ring? They're like, yeah. I go, where? In the cupboard. It's like, really? In a cupboard? Yeah, we were reaching for tea bags and it fell into the box. So these things will show up in the wildest places. So I've had a lot of what I call closure searches where I don't find them, but they still have a chance to find them themselves.
You know, that's an awful lot of searching. And here's the things that come to my mind is you've had to have come across other things besides the ring you were searching for. So what do you think is the coolest find you've come up with in the process of searching for somebody's ring that you weren't expecting?
Oh, great question.
Well, yeah, usually where I'm searching, if it's lost at a park, it's a recent loss, it's going to be a metal detector and a pinpointer, no digging tools. So if I get a beep, I'll look down. If I don't see it, I'll get the pinpointer. If the pinpointer doesn't beep, I move on because I know it's deeper than 3 inches. It's not going to be their ring. Yeah. So recent losses are going to be very quick to find with really nothing else in that area. But I have many times gone to look for somebody's ring and found another ring. I remember this one guy in particular who lost a white gold ring. He begged me to go out there. I'm like, hey, man, it's okay. I'll go. Just, I'll be there at 4:35 in the morning at low tide. I'll find. He goes, but do me a favor, text me. I'll drive out. I go, what's up? He goes, I haven't told my wife, and she'd kill me if she knew I lost it. So I'm like, okay, I'll text you. So he described it as a white gold wedding band. He put me on the area of the beach where the pontoon was, and I found it. So I texted him at like 6 something. I said, I got your ring. He shows up in about 20 minutes. He's so happy. He puts it on, and he's like, thank you so much. And he's walking away, and he stops. He goes, I don't think this is my ring. And I go, you said it was white gold. He goes, yeah, but I think there was writing in it. And he's looking at it, and I go, give me 20 minutes. I went back out, and I found another white gold ring. It was a Tiffany & Company, and it has his wife's name and the date they got married. He goes, that's my ring. So, yeah, that could happen for sure. The only thing I could answer to that is you'll find other jewelry while you're looking for somebody else's.
Oh man, that was a good return right there. Give the man two and let him pick which one he wants. No doubt. I mean, you know what? There's so many wonderful stories. I had a couple from where were they from? Utah. And they had been visiting Whistler, which is a ski resort in the summertime, beautiful place. And there's Shannon Falls, a beautiful waterfall. And they begged me to come out because I was working. I couldn't get out there the weekend. They were going to leave on the cruise. So I took a day off of work. I drove up there. I met them early. We went there. And I'm 60 years old. I'm like, I'm not a young guy anymore. And we're going down by a waterfall. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, but my wife made it on flip-flops. You should be okay. And it was like straight down big boulders, but we made it down. And he assured me there was an area where it could have been lost where I could sweep my metal detector. When I get there, it was about a 3x3 area, 3 foot by 3 foot area. And I'm like, this is a rock she was on. We know it fell off somewhere around here. So I swept my metal detector, no signal. And I just looked at him. I said, you know what? We have to attack this. We have to move these rocks around here. And they're big, pretty big boulders. So we got some old dead trees and stumps, and we were using it as priors. We pried over the rocks. We were searching, probably an hour or more gone. And I sit down. We're all sitting down by the area, and we're talking. And they got to get going pretty soon because they got to leave for this cruise. And I'm just, as I'm talking, I'm moving this rock. It's probably about 3 feet by 2 feet, and I've got my hands underneath, and I'm kind of prying it up. And we're just talking. I move the rock, and I reach my hands. I'm just sifting through the kind of the sand and water as I'm talking, and I sift up the ring. And this was a honker ring, and we both, all three of us, just our jaws dropped. I didn't capture this on video because I turn my video off when it's taken a long time. But the reaction I was just as surprised as all of them. So it wedged under
rocks beside a smaller rock and under a bigger rock. So it was pretty amazing. I remember that search because it shocked all of us.
What's the longest you've ever spent on a search return?
Well, that one I told you in the cemetery is about
long?
6-7 years right now.
Yeah,
that one,
wow.
I continue to go back. When I get some spare time, I'll go back for a weekend. I'll go back and I'll go back. That one has probably been the longest I've been searching for. I have gone and done, I think, one time 3 days in a row, 12-hour days for a ladies' ring, lost at a beach. And I grid searched and cross grid. Unfortunately, our tides go out about a half a mile, some places even further. And it's hard pan sand. So her ring would have probably sat up. And on this particular beach, a lot of people walk. I think somebody might have eyeballed it right after. So that one I spent, like I say, maybe 12 hours, maybe 10 hours, but 3 days nonstop grid searching for that one. I don't give up easy, and I take it personal when I don't find it, but I'm also a realist. I know I can only find what's there to be found. I had a search where a lady from Austria had lost a ring, 44 diamonds. There was 4 bands, gold bands wrapped around with 11 diamonds on each band. And she had lost it. She showed me where she had lost it swimming. I spent days looking for this one at the lowest of low tides, couldn't find it, and put it out to the treasure club out here and saying, look at this lady from Austria lost a ring. She left me the reward. If anybody finds it, you can have the reward. And like 3 months later, Jerry, a friend of mine now, this is when I first met him from the club, he had found it and reached out to me and said, I think I found that ring. 3 months later, nowhere near where she had put me in the area. Wow. So you can see, how important that is, getting somebody in the area. She put me in an area where I spent 3 days, and it was like 150, 200 yards further down the beach, where she first entered the water, not where she was swimming. So that one, that was a nice, because it got returned back to Austria.
Yeah. And you got to be a good detective. And we'll talk about that right after this commercial break right here. If you want to keep up with what's going on in the metal detecting world, then you need to be a subscriber to American Digger magazine. Butch and Anita Holcomb are the publishers of the magazine and have won awards for 3 straight years for being the best digger magazine on the market. American Digger magazine is available in both print and digital formats, so no matter where you live in the world, you can enjoy the latest happenings in the hobby. You can get in touch with American Digger magazine by going to americandigger.com or give them a call at 770-362-8671. And be sure and tell them that you heard it on RELICS Radio. And as all of you know, I am the producer and one of the co-hosts on American Digger's Relic Roundup every Monday night at 9 o'clock, me and Butch Holcomb and Jeff Lupert. So if you're not doing anything this Monday, we've got a show scheduled. Josh Tyree from A Father to a Son article, and he will be our guest. Our guest here tonight with me and Ken King is Chris Turner of the RingFinders. And we were talking there before we went to break. Chris, you do have to be a good detective in order to be successful at this, don't you?
100%. Absolutely. I mean, we are guilty of having the best equipment, and all these metal detectors will find what you're looking for. But if you don't know the questions to ask, if you don't ask the right questions and you don't get put in the area, you could be walking away from a smile. I share that with my members. I've been doing this for so long, and I've learned so much. And I share everything with my members. I'm learning from my members. I mean, you never stop learning. I love reading the stories that come onto my website and hearing the stories on where these things are found and how they're found. And one of my things is trying to find how we can narrow it down even more, save ourselves more time. And an example of that, Loy, is when you listen to the story and you start, and you do your grid, and you find it near the end of your grid in, like, say, 45 minutes or an hour, and you think to yourself, if I would have started on that side and did the grid the other way, I would have found that in 5 minutes. So to me, I love trying to figure out how we can get ourselves even closer. But yeah, detective, big part of what we do is asking questions. And I kind of reflected on this on the Relic Roundup the last time we talked about a member in Washington, D.C., Brian Rudolph, who got a phone call to do a property search for gold coins that were buried. And I remember that one because he had reached out to me because they weren't finding it. They even got a backhoe and dug around the area where they believed it was. And we kind of went back and forth and talking. And, my kind of thought process was don't get too tied up into the story, because after 30 years, these coins were buried for 30 plus years. The story could have changed. And they knew it was by the corner of the house, a shovel's length. I'm pretty sure we were talking, it's like go for all four corners. And they found it. The second corner he went to, 60 gold Kugran 1 ounce coins, over $100,000 worth of gold coins.
Goodness gracious.
I mean, these are dream searches. I mean, when you get these searches, there's nothing like it. And, the amazing thing about Brian was he heard the whole story about how this father, this man's father, had put that there for his family. So if they hit rough times, they would have something to pull from, to draw from. And Brian said, because the man had taken off to go do something, he said, look, if I find it, I'm going to stop digging because I know your father would want you to dig it up. So lo and behold, Brian is out there, he's searching, he gets a signal, he digs down, he starts seeing plastic, he feels something, he stops his dig, and he waits for the man to come. He knocked on the door and got the man's wife, and they waited for him to come and dig it up. I mean, wow, my hat's off to him. Wow. I'd have been so excited just to dig it up and hold it, but he waited till he came up so the man could dig it up himself. And it's an amazing story. It's on our website. You can see it on our news page. There's a link to it as well, and it's a story worth reading. It's pretty cool.
Great story.
We talked about too, the gold coins were dated from like 75 to 80 something, that the time period that he was buying the coins. And gold in 1975 was like $35 an ounce, if you can believe it. I mean, wow. It's pretty cool. And then I think when he stopped buying it near the 80s, it was like $500 an ounce. But it's pretty cool story. It's the stories that we get put onto, and they're wonderful.
Yeah. And I have opened the phone lines. I said I'd open them up at 7:50, and Denny Morrison is the first on the line tonight. What's going on, Denny?
I've been waiting for the seconds to tick by.
I knew you were. I knew you were.
Hi, Chris. How you doing tonight?
Hi, Denny. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I wanted to tell you, you were talking about finding a ring in a lake for a lady. I had a couple stop me one time, and they were out in a lake where I hunt all the time. And they said they lost a ring out there. So I went out about where he said it was at, and I walked back and forth. You know how you do, back and forth, crisscross, exit. I found 4 rings the day they were there, and none of them were his. And it took me a month before I finally found the ring, and I had 7 more rings after they left. And then I returned that ring to them. And you just never know. It's crazy.
That's fantastic. When you know there's a ring in the area, you lock down. You might have found those more rings than you would have, because when you go into with the thought of there's a ring here, you will do everything you can to take your time to grid search. And it's good for people to hear this, because I go into places myself on my own time thinking, okay, there's a ring here, and I do my lockdown and start grid searching. And you will bump into rings. But, sometimes I freelance. I do what I call freelancing, just going till I get a feeling, going wherever I want. But fantastic, you found that many rings, and congrats on finding the one you were looking for.
Yeah. When you're looking for a ring like that, and after a while, I dug every signal. And I believe that's why I dug so many rings. I just dig in everything. So, and that, of course, I dug a lot of beer cans too. 1920 beer cans. This is an old lake, so it's crazy.
Wow, that's cool. Did you get any old class rings out of there?
Any old what?
He asked,
what did you say, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have got class rings out of there from the 20s and the 40s, yes, and try to return three of them to actually Dayton, Ohio, and went to the school. I got a hold of the school, got their names and everything, and tried to call them, and never got. I left messages, and they never called back. So I think I turned them into the gold man.
1920 is a long time ago.
Yep. So I have returned. I mean, I've returned lots of rings, and I've told the stories before. So, yeah. My oldest ring, well, somebody else was on here and said they returned a class ring. I found one in a lake that they drain down every year, and I went in there and dug this class ring out, and it was right at the top. I found out later she lost it the day her mom and dad gave it to her, and I returned it to her when she was a teacher for a 5th grade school, and it was crazy, and that was like almost 30 or 40 years later.
Wow, that is so cool.
And it looked like it was brand new. I couldn't believe it. I went, oh, man, she surely just lost this. But no, so crazy.
Yeah, that's the way gold is.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Well, nice talking to you, Chris. I'll get off here, Loy. Good to have you back on the show. It's good.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Thank
it.
you,
Talk to y'all later.
And thank you for the call. And by the way, we do have the phone lines open. It's 270-495-0315. Maybe you've had a return that you want to talk about, or maybe you've got a question that you want to ask Chris. I know that Kent's got another question that he wants to ask.
Sure. Mark Hoover earlier in the chat said, I think talking to the person asking a lot of questions is critical. That information you get from that person is definitely critical for your search. And Chris, I thought I was watching one of your videos, and I'll apologize ahead of time if I've gotten you confused with somebody else, but I thought I was watching one of your videos, and you were talking to the lady, and she was kind of explaining out by the fence line where she thought she had lost this ring. And the more you talked to her, the more you got the truth out of her, that she had actually gotten upset and actually thrown the ring. And then once you had the good information, you were able to zero in on it.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I've done many recoveries like that, and people get angry. It happens. It's human, and rings go flying, and that happens a lot to myself, my members. And the most important thing is just making people comfortable. I mean, to give you an example, somebody will say, I lost my ring gardening. I'll show up to their place and I'm in the bushes. And right away I know, okay, somebody got mad and threw it because I'm not in the garden. And I'll start talking to them very casually, a lot of people get upset. I've done a lot of recoveries where I find rings after people throw them. They're like, that happens? It happens all the time. Well, actually, that's what I did. And then I go, okay, well, where were you standing when you were mad? And they'll show me. And I said, which direction were you throwing? This way? Now, I'll take test rings where I'll get them to throw them so I can watch it with a bit of flagging tape on it so I can see the direction, how they're throwing it, where these are ending up. And I know that they never throw it as far when they're showing somebody. When they're angry, it can go really far. Now, the important thing to do, again, here's the detective, is were you drinking? Yes, I was. How much were you drinking? A lot. Would you say you were sloshed? Yes, I was. Okay, now I know the ring's not going near as far. As a matter of fact, rings could be thrown downwards. If you're so drunk, you just and you kind of throw it downwards. It might only be 5 or 6 yards, and a lot of times that's where I find them. So you're questioning, again, detective work. You have to ask the right questions. If you get somebody who's thrown a ring, they weren't drinking. Do you play sports? Yeah, I play baseball. What position? Pitcher. It's just going to go a long way. So, these things all kind of are bits and pieces of the puzzle. I had a guy who just got married less than 24 hours, went to his dad's place, and realized his ring was missing. He was driving home that evening. They spent the whole time outside. He only went in the house once to the kitchen. So he knew it was on that 1 acre property. I grid searched that place for 3.5 hours. My first question was, when did you notice it was missing? He goes, on the drive home. I go, did you check your car? He goes, I vacuumed the car. So it made me feel comfortable that, okay, he vacuumed the car. They would have heard the clonk. They would have got the ring. I spent 3.5 hours in the backyard in an acre, cross-grading. Couldn't find it. I just said something my instincts were saying, can I check your car? And he's like, yeah. So I went in the car, and I was looking, and under the passenger seat, where the motor for the seat is, there was a little slit in the carpet, and I could see a hint of gold. And I lifted the slit, and there was a ring. I had to get a coat hanger to poke it out. but that would have been sold with the car 10 years later whenever he sold the car, because he would never have looked in there again. So these things show up in the most bizarre places, but I love the calls. I get excited to ask the questions. It is a treasure hunt, you know?
What percentage success do you have on the calls that you get? Can you put a number on it?
Oh, I'm 100%. If you know where you lost the ring and you saw it come off your hand, right. I'm 100%. I will not miss a ring, because when somebody tells me, Mr. Turner, we're here, we're doing this, we saw the ring come off. Right. I will find every one of those rings. And I respond quickly, so I'm not afraid of anybody beating me to it. I will find it. That's 100%. You know what? To be honest with you, I've found over 600. I've had so many calls. I can only find what's there to be found. And I tell everybody that. I'll even tell them on the phone, look, I'll come in there, I'll do my best, but just know this, I can only find what's there to be found. And then if I don't, Loy, I'll say, your ring is not here. Go back and start retracing your steps. And I'll say this, I know I said this probably the last time, but I had a rash of calls, like 7 or 8 calls in a row, maybe more, where people were playing with their kids in the playground and lost their rings. And I thought, this is easy. Those are simple. They're in the wood chips. It's going to take me 5 minutes. I get there, I don't find it. It's like, okay, your ring's not here. Unless somebody eyeballed it. But more than likely, nobody was looking for your ring. Kids were running around. What did you do after? And when did you notice the ring was, gone? When we got home. How long was that? Like an hour after we left the playground. What did you do then? We went to the store. What store? Go back to that store and go to their lost and found. I think it was a high number. It was like 6 out of 8 or something like that, or 6 out of 10. I'm not sure the numbers, but it was a high rate of return for people going back to gas stations, restaurants, and stores, and the rings had been turned in. But they all associated the loss because they were with their kids at a playground. Isn't that bizarre? And it was like one after another, one call after another, after another, after another. And even one that was lost at a beach by a log. And the lifeguard saw me and said, what are you looking for? And I told him after she had left, because we couldn't find it. He goes, I think I found it. I said, where? He goes, in the washroom. She swore she was never in the washroom, but it was her ring.
Yeah, it's just asking the right questions. On one hand, just simply put, what 5 questions would you ask somebody, or if you've got 2 or 3 or whatever, what questions are you going to ask everyone?
Well, if you called me, Lloyd, and said, hi, are you the RingFinders? Like, yes, I am. We need your help. And I'd say, okay, could you tell me what you lost? And they'll say, well, I lost my wedding band. Do you know where you lost? And they start telling me over the phone what beach. I go, whoa, before you tell me, what beach, are you comfortable telling me that? Well, yeah, we read your website. We saw your testimonies. We're 100% comfortable with telling you that. I've had people tell me over the phone exactly where they've lost it at a beach, and they live like an hour and a half away. They like, Mr. Turner, do you think you'd go and have a look for us? Absolutely. I go to the beach and I find it, and I drive to their place and drop it off, and they're like, this is incredible. You're better than Pizza Hut, you deliver, and they're all excited. But I'm sorry, I lost track of mine there. What was your question again, Ken?
Well, I was just asking. Yeah, I was just asking. The basic questions that you asked. So you're going to ask them, what did you lose, and do you know where you lost it? In other words, did you see it come off your hand? Right.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I'll get somebody saying, and this happens a lot. We were gardening, and got back in the house and realized the ring was gone. So it had to have been lost when we were gardening. I'm like, okay, how long later did you notice the ring was missing? If it becomes like 5 or 10 minutes, that's great. If it's hours or the next day, that leaves it wide open. But what I do, and I do a lot of these, they're called closure searches, where I'll go to their place, I'll search their garden, their whole area, and I'll give them closure. If I don't find, I say, now you can start looking your house. And I'll get calls days later. And but the questions I'll ask is, when did you notice the ring was missing? Did you see it come off your hand? What makes you think it's in the garden? And as they're answering the questions, I'm thinking of more questions to ask them to make sure, I have a chance to go out there and give it 100%.
Yeah, that's amazing. Good questions. That's definitely the key. I was wondering, now when you get out, so Chris, you go out and you detect for pleasure on your own just to get out, and when you're not hunting for rings, tell me a little bit about metal detecting there in Vancouver. Like what's the scene like there for metal detecting?
Well, it's really interesting. Like I said earlier, our tides go out like a half a mile on most of our beaches. And we wait for winds, we wait for storms, we're looking for cuts, for dips. And we have one beach that's very close to the U.S. border. It's White Rock. And there's one particular end of the beach that we've been pulling out 3-ringer lead bullets from the 1860s. So I started researching and found out that back in the 1840s, there was a trading post near where I was finding these 3-ringers. And then it turned into a military base in the 1860s. So it made sense to us that there was no war ever there, but it made sense we were finding all these 3. We still find them, depending on the cuts and the weather and stuff like that and the layout of the beach. We still find them out there. And I love that. I mean, I love finding that 3-ring. I think it's fantastic. But it's due to people back in the 1860s shooting at fowl. Geese, ducks, whatever back in the day, or just practicing. So they're really good shape. And last year I found a ring that was hallmarked to 1860s. So, and it looked really crude. It was, you can tell it'd been there a long, long time.
Wow.
And we've probably got a lot of people on here that have never water hunted on the beach or what have you. And there are certain areas whenever you get along a beach or in the water, there are certain areas where all of that gold, all of those rings, all those heavy things are going to go down. And you might give them some kind of indication of what you mean whenever you're talking about a cut or a hard bottom or hard pan.
Yeah, I think every beach is different. The layups in California, Florida, Hawaii, you guys you have a lot of wave action, so you'll get a lot of cuts where you'll see a drop in a shelf where you'll want to kind of hunt around because you've just lost 3 or 4 feet of sand. So when you start seeing that, you're going to hunt around that. What we do out here, when the tide goes out, it leaves pools. And your pools are inherently your low spots, meaning it's holding the water. All the tide's gone out, but there's areas with holding water where we do very well and we can pull out some old stuff. But believe me, it's not every time. We could go out to the same beach 10 days in a row, come out with just garbage, and then you go out the next day and you find gold. You've got to earn it. You've got to work for it. And that's what's so beautiful about this hobby is if you're prepared to put in the time, you'll find your treasures. And I've got a YouTube video when I went to California. I think I call it the treasure between the trash. I went to California for 3 weeks and found 80 pounds of bottle caps, pull tabs, tent pegs, bobby pins, just scrap iron, 80 pounds of garbage to find 5 gold rings.
Yeah. And we've got another caller on, Larry Stevens. What's going on tonight?
Hey, Lloyd. Hey, Chris. Very good to talk to both of you. Chris, I got a quick story and maybe a question here. I as Lloyd knows, I am a complete rookie at this whole metal detecting thing. And I want to actually thank you as from a YouTuber as to having a little influence on my life as to getting me into this hobby. I've been doing this, it's a little over 2 years. Recently, I found a class ring, and I have made contact with the owner and his wife and his mother. Unfortunately, I had an appointment set up to do return, but they had a death in family, had to reschedule. He has absolutely no idea why I am meeting with him, so it's kind of fun that to have a story. So I think he thinks maybe I'm stalking him or whatever, but I've given my cell phone number, Facebook page, all this fun stuff. But it's kind of interesting to try to set this whole thing up. So it's just waiting on another opportunity to meet with him.
Now, how long has that ring been gone, or do you know?
Yeah, it's a 2002 class ring, so it's not that old. But I'm no question about who it belongs to. Like I said, I actually found his wife and his mother on Facebook, and he does not have a Facebook page, but I've actually had some lengthy text messages or messages back and forth with him in order to try to set the meeting up to return it. So but I am adamant. I am not going to tell him why I'm going to meet with him. He's going to have to take my word for it. I mean, eventually, if he just says, "No, hell with you, I'm not going to meet with you," I mean, I'll give him drop a little hint or whatever to entice him back in.
Yeah.
But I definitely want it to be a 100% surprise as to why I'm meeting with him. So it's kind of fun.
Be sure that you take a camera with you and that you record that whole event, especially as you give him the ring. Go ahead, Chris. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's my plan.
Yep.
Hey, Larry. First of all, thank you for being a rookie and for just being in this hobby for only 2 years and wanting to do what you're doing. I find that remarkable. I just absolutely love hearing stories like this. Some people would keep those. They weigh it out and think, hey, this is a lot of grams, I'm going to keep this. They don't see the value of the story behind it. And you've only been doing this 2 years, and you already are looking for an owner. I find that fantastic. I just want to say thank you very much for doing that. I think that's just a wonderful thing to do. You're going to make somebody very happy. You're going to hear an incredible story, and you're going to see their jaw drop. And you know what I do. I don't know if you've ever seen my YouTube channel, but I have a habit of finding rings but not telling them. And as I'm talking to them, I'll have the camera up and I'll put the ring in front of my lens. And I wait till a moment where they're thinking and they're not looking, and I just hold it in front of my lens, and I got the camera on the guy. And all of a sudden, you see him turn, and he's talking, and all of a sudden their eyes fixate on what you're holding. They're like, "What?" And you see that excitement. He'll be blown away. That's 18 years old, that ring. That's been lost for a long time.
Yeah.
It's actually, I found it at the elementary school basketball court from the high school that he graduated from. So it's going to be fun. And yes, I absolutely plan on doing try to do the video thing on it and get, kind of document it. So, but it's been fun, and I do appreciate, you and what you do, because you have been an influence on kind of the excitement of what I do. And I know Lloyd, he's trying to corrupt me to be a relic hunter. So I don't know. We might get there one day.
And for those of you that don't know, this is Larry Stevens. He lives, I don't know, probably about 30 minutes from me. And on our last two videos, the last two Diggin with 7 videos, he's been in those. And we've just scouted out a couple of places across the river, and as soon as it quits raining and everything dies down a little bit, we're going to hit those. But thanks for the call, Larry, and I'm looking forward to that return and the pictures from it.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, good luck, Larry. Hey, Chris, what type of equipment are you using these days?
I'm a big fan of whites, have been since the early 70s. I've kind of switched over to the Equinox 800 and enjoying that right now.
Yeah, have you been enjoying that?
I have. Yeah, it's an amazing machine. I mean, for a VLF to work so well and be so balanced on our saltwater conditions, and I've tested it closely with my dual field, and it's very similar to the depth, which is amazing. And the fact that they can actually find gold chains, as not a lot of metal detectors can, it just makes you want to go out with it for that fact right there.
Right. Now, before the show, you and I were talking about heading over to England and how life-changing that can be to be detecting over in England. You want to talk a little bit about your trips over there?
Oh, that was a long time ago. I got married and we spent 4 months out there. I made my wife go out hunting with me for 4 months, and she loved it too. But you know what? This is back in the 90s, and it's life-changing when you're in a country like Canada. It's like 150 years old. People get excited to find 1920s, 1930s silver here, half dollars. It's always nice to find. But when you're over in the UK and you're pulling out Roman coins, and, it's staggering. I mean, to be the first to hold it in 1,000 or 2,000 years, and just think of the story attached to it. I found a Roman fibula, a Roman brooch, and it had the pin in it. And I remember it was with a half a dozen other guys from Wales, and we're breaking for a cup of tea and lunch, and they said, "Did you find anything?" I said, "I found a wrong brooch." Like, very, very, may I hold it? And it's like, yeah. And I passed it to one guy, and he'd hold it. He's like, "I'm the second person to touch this in 2,000 years." Yeah. And he'd pass it down the line. You can see the respect of what was found and the people holding it, because we all feel that 6 degrees of separation, the story, the untold story that we just found. And it just makes your mind go crazy. That's what's so amazing about what we do, and I just love this hobby.
Yeah, and we've got another caller on. Barb is on the line. What's going on, Barb? You washing dishes over there?
No, sorry. I had to get up and get something, so, my laptop travels.
Hey, welcome to the show tonight. You got a question, or have you done a return that you want to talk about?
Well, actually, I belong to RingFinders, and I had someone contact me a week and a half ago. And when I went on the page, I realized my subscription had expired. So I paid for it, but I probably didn't put my name on the PayPal thing. So I did pay. I sent an email.
Okay,
but I was still listed, even though I had I think I ran out maybe August or September, and I didn't realize it. But how come I get all the crazy people? Is it because I'm in the mountains?
Tell me your story. What's a crazy one?
Okay, well, my first one was a chick that was painting and decided she'd put her ring in her bra, and realized like 5 hours later her ring was missing. And so I metal detected every part of her drive, her backyard, her front yard, everywhere she had been. And I finally told her, it's either in your house, in your car, or at the grocery store, because those are the only places I haven't detected.
Did you check the bra?
No.
Loy, I was waiting for you to go there.
Because
you guys are laughing about that, detecting the bra. I got to tell you, I had one. It showed up in the most unusual place, and it was still in the bra. But it was. I know this is a family show. I don't know if I want to get into this.
No.
But it was around the nipple.
Oh, me.
It was incredible, because that's the first thing I said to her. Did you check her bra? And she said, yes, I did. But she got home. It was still there. It wasn't on the under part. So she thought she had lost it. I spent like 3 hours on the beach searching for it. So bizarre. Wow. And these stories do happen, Barbara.
Oh, and so my last one, which I went Saturday, they had called me on Monday, and I'm like, look, I work. They're 45 minutes from me, and she lost her ring in the backyard. Well, when I get there, I'm like, okay, so where were you in the backyard? And she was like, why don't you come in? And she did pay me, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But I said, so where were you? And it turns out, I don't know if it's her sugar daddy, because he was older than her. He couldn't even look at me. But they must have had a fight, and he picked up her jewelry box and hummed it across the backyard. So I found 20, 30 pieces of jewelry, but not the ring.
Well, it's probably there somewhere. And
I was there for 3 hours, and I gridded it, and I was finding piece after piece in a row, and then I wouldn't find anything, and then I'd find 4 or 5 more pieces. And I just, if 9-karat gold, 2 rings soldered together, I just have a hard time believing that I didn't find it, that it should have sang like a bird, Well,
I know that I have found some 10 karat gold youth rings on CTX that rang up really, really low. And if you know anything about a CTX, a quarter or something ring up like a 1247. These were like 1209, 1210, real, real low. So, if it's down to a 9, I don't know. You may have to go back and search.
Hey, Lloyd.
Yeah.
I don't, if you watch my videos, you'll see me using a pulse induction in somebody's property, because I don't even believe in looking at a visual display and looking at numbers, because if you get fixated on numbers, it's sitting beside something else. It might disguise it where you don't think it's going to be what you're looking for.
Right.
I go with my VLF because I'm looking for a loud, proud, bang, look down, there it is. Like you did, Barbara, you were finding piece after piece. Don't get fixated on any visual display. Even if you are using a VLF, go for every target signal. Any signal that's loud and proud.
I did. I actually was using CT Todd setting on my dais, which I have found 9-karat gold with, white gold. And I could hear the iron, and there's a lot of it, but when I got over a piece of jewelry, you could hear it.
Sure.
And I don't look at numbers. I'm a hearing person, headphone, and there were things that I was like, ooh, that might be something, and I moved the grass, and it's a little teeny weeny silver earring, which, didn't blow my ears off, but it was so much smaller than the ring. I expected the ring to have a little bit better signal.
Well, that's if the ring was even in there.
That's what and I'm starting to think that, because I even expanded and went out, and it was her mother's ring. And when the man showed up, he couldn't even look at me. He never came and talked to me, and he was the one who called me.
Sure.
So it makes me wonder.
People are very, not insecure is the word, they're embarrassed. And like I said earlier, these searches come along, they happen. The most important thing is we find what we're looking for. Some people will talk about it. I've actually got videos of people, talking about these searches. I had a lady who threw a $68,000 ring or $60,000 ring out of a patio window 3 stories up. And she had no problem going on video talking about it. She was drinking. She got mad at her brother. She threw it out the window. And fortunately, there was a little square area of grass below her, and the rest was concrete. I found it there and was able to get it back to her. And she had no problem talking. I would say 98% of the people I search for don't want to be on my videos or talk about it. And I understand that.
But most of them don't have a problem taking a picture with it, right? Or do they?
Sometimes those people don't want a picture taken because they don't want the story told. That way, I tell my members, just get a picture of you holding it with your smile. We can still use that as proof you found it for somebody. But yeah, I've had even people who don't get mad at their spouses and throw it. Some people just generally don't want to be on the internet. So I totally respect that, and I'll just take a picture of me holding it.
Yeah. Barb, did you have any other questions there? I've got another caller on. Go ahead.
I did, and I'll make it quick.
Okay.
I had somebody comment on my ring finder page. I put for a fee, $25 to $50, only because I'm in the mountains, and where you may be on the other side of that mountain, it may take me an hour to get to you. There's only one ring finder. He's about 45 minutes to the west of me, but west of him, there's none for a good hour and a half. And south of me, I am in the mountains of North Carolina, so there's hardly any ring finders around me. There's like 2. So I look.
What's your last name, Barbara?
Connell, C-O-N. It's spelled like Connell, C-O-N-N.
I got you. Yeah.
And okay. So when you look at the map, there isn't a whole lot of us in that area. And so I could be driving 3 hours. So yeah. I figured that wasn't unreasonable. Like the one I just did,
it's not unreasonable, and you can negotiate, because I tell every member, we work on a reward basis. We leave it up to people to pay what they can afford, what's worth to them. But you've got to get your cost back for travel. You shouldn't be out of pocket to drive 3 or 4 hours and not find a ring. So always make sure you get your gas covered, and that's not a problem. For people that are serious and they want their ring found, they'll pay you for your travel for sure.
Okay, because it took me probably 50 minutes to get there. So, 2 hours, and I was there 2.5 hours. Yeah. But I did tell her, I said, I didn't find it. You did pay me. And as soon as I can get back over here, because you're not around the corner, I'll come for free, and give it one more try.
Yeah.
There you go.
Congrats on finding what you did.
Yeah, she was happy. I found brooches, I found necklaces, earrings, but did not find that ring.
Well, good deal. Maybe next time you go, you'll find it then.
I hope so. Fingers crossed. Y'all have a good night.
Okay, thanks for the call, Barb. And we got my buddy Jeff Lubert on the phone now. What's going on, Jeff?
I'm just sitting back enjoying the show. How you guys doing tonight?
Working.
Watching the snowfall.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
Yeah. Good, man. Good. How you doing?
Doing all right. I just did a ring search, was it Monday or Tuesday, I think it was. Haven't updated my blog yet, but that's definitely something I have to get done. That's something that, we definitely have to make sure we do as ring finders, update those blogs as often as quickly as you can, because people look at that stuff.
They do, and it's built. It's such a positive image around a directory with amazing people doing what most people don't, and that's helping others find what they've lost. And I'm like I say, I'm proud of you guys. And yeah, it really has created such a positive image for this directory. You guys doing your stories, posting your blogs, and showing the pictures. So thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Yeah. The last ring I found, a gentleman was out putting mulch in his yard along the house, and so, he lost it then. And I searched it with a couple different detectors, couldn't find it. I said, let's sit back and tell me your story one more time. And tell me when you lost the ring, or tell me when you had the ring for a fact. Tell me when whether it was gone, and everything that happened in between. And from there, he started telling me, I went to Home Depot, picked up the mulch, came home, did light it all out, spread it around. And I go, yeah, it's not in the mulch or in the yard. So that only leaves Home Depot in your car. He's like, oh, man, I've searched that car 3 times already. I said, well, let's go take a look at it again. I go, I'm another set of eyes. I'm not going to do any better than you did, but you know what? I'm not emotional when I do my search. And what? Let's just give it a go. And sure enough, I found his ring in the car, even though he said he'd searched it completely from top to bottom twice. So,
well, way to think out of the box and way to go for your gut, because you could have easily just walked away and he, like one of my searches, he would have sold the car 10 years ago and never found that ring. So congrats on that. That's persistence.
I think I found 3 rings in cars for people.
And Jeff, I think you make a good point, because if I lose something and it's of great value to me, I'm hunting it emotionally. I'm not looking at it logically, and you're hunting without emotion, and you're checking all the boxes and everything, and strategic about it, I guess you could say. So you're gonna look at it different than somebody else is.
Yep. Whether it be the person that lost it or their immediate family, whether it be the husband, the wife, mother, or whatever, they always go into it with a more emotion than someone not related to the situation. So I
can't find the salad dressing in the refrigerator, and it's looking right at me. I was looking for my glasses, my reading glasses, the other day, and they were I had them on, and so I know I'm not the person to be looking for something that I've lost. Maybe I can for somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah, and see that's the big thing I think about with the ring finders is you're coming into it just completely separate from that whole search or that emotional portion of the search. And it really does lend to finding the objects, whatever they might be.
That's a great point.
How many returns have you done, Jeff?
I have 50 some on the ring finders.
Wow.
Directory thing, but I went a couple years without posting any, just because it seemed like I was getting 2 or 3 calls a day, and that'd go for like a month without getting a call. So trying to update those was a little bit difficult. But then I just started making the effort to go back and make sure I do it with each and every recovery.
I'm hoping that once summer comes around and all this virus and everything goes away and I get back on the lake, I'm going to post some some of the posters and everything at each of the docks. I'm hoping to get a few calls from Del Hollow Lake, where people are swimming or jumping off the houseboat and everything.
Absolutely.
One of the other things, too, since you're a member of the RingFinders, you know what? I've produced business cards for myself with the RingFinders logo on it, all my contact information.
Yeah.
Go to those areas where the rental places, because I just went to a rental place the other day to fill up an LP tank for my grill. Noticed they had metal detectors for rent. Like, I'm going to go post my card there for those people that go rent a metal detector because they don't know that we're out there.
Right.
But they know that these rental places have them. So,
yeah.
You know what? Post the cards there. Give it to the rangers. Go to the beach areas and give it to the lifeguards, your cards.
Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah, great idea.
So, anyway, I just thought I'd call in and chat up a bit just to let you know I'm out here.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good to hear from you.
Appreciate it, and appreciate you and Ken taking the show last week while I was down on the coast playing. Of course, I did talk to you Monday night. We had a good show Monday night together on Relic Roundup. But, yeah, appreciate the call and appreciate all that you do, Jeff.
All righty. Well, we'll catch you guys later, and thanks for having a good show.
All
right.
Have a good night, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thanks, man.
Hey, Chris, before we let you go here tonight, I put some links in the description in the video, in the show description here, but tell everybody how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, you know what? If you're interested in just learning more about the RingFinders, you can go to www.theringfinders.com. It's theringfinders.com. And we have blog pages, we have news pages, testimonials, and how to join if you're interested. I also have a YouTube channel called The RingFinders on YouTube, and I have hundreds of returns and smiles, and it's kind of a fun place to go and watch and see what this does do to people. And, I just can't thank you enough for having me on. Thank you so much, Loy. Ken, thank you. Great talking to you. All the best to you and your wife. I'm going to send you lots of positive energy your way.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that.
And go ahead, Ken. I kind of jumped in. Did you have anything else that you wanted to ask or add or anything?
No, I think he's been a great guest tonight. I really enjoy hearing about all those ring returns. Like I said, they're my favorite of all times. I was on earlier looking through all the blog posts and stuff, and the stories are just absolutely amazing. So I encourage anybody to go over to theringfinders.com and read through some of them testimonials and some of those blog posts. It really is touching, some of them. So hats off to you, Chris.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys at RELICS Radio show, and thanks for listening to my stories.
Yeah, and, we had you on the Relic Roundup, and I knew I had to get you over here. I know it was a little bit close, but I wanted to for you to share your story over here with some listeners that may not have heard the other show. You two guys, hang on. Let me close the show out, and I'll catch you off air here. We do thank everybody for joining the show tonight, and a special thanks to Chris Turner for being such a wonderful guest, and for Ken King. Once again, he's a glutton for punishment to come on the show again tonight, and to Jeff Lubert and him for doing my show last week. I'll be back here next Thursday night at 8 o'clock. Don't miss it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on RELICS Radio. We really do appreciate it. Be sure and join us live every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern here on Spreaker. Or you can catch the archive show at RELICS Radio on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Apple Podcast, and many other podcast outlets. RELICS Radio is also syndicated on the Cutting Edge Radio Network and is broadcast around the world. Please take a minute and hit the like button, and be sure and follow us so that you get notifications of all of our upcoming broadcasts. Be sure and visit Diggin with 7 on YouTube and check out the RELICS Radio Facebook group page. If you'd like to get in touch with us, then send an email to relicsradio@outlook.com. We'd love to hear from you. And we hope that you'll join us next Thursday night. Until then, get out there and dig some history.